So what happened with my apartment complex is I live in an apartment that has a federal subsidy attached to it, right? So with that being said, the federal government covers a portion of the rent, and then the tenant has a portion of their own rent, the portion of the rent that they cover. This portion is based off of income. The documentation says that it's $30, 30%. It's either 30%, 10%, or $15 as a minimum, right? Which will kick in if you have zero income, right? When I moved into this apartment, I had a specific amount that I was paying, right? Every year there is a recertification process done where they just recalculate your income, and they have to base your income based on how much you're receiving at that point. My recertification, because I moved in this apartment in September of 2023, which I was only here for a partial year, which is what is calculated as. And the recertification was scheduled for May 27th of 2024. That was my next recertification that got scheduled. The management office came and left a notice on my door stating that because May 27th 2024 was a holiday, that the office would be closed and that I need to look out in the mail for another recertification to get scheduled, right? So they didn't do it. Mind you, at this time I had gotten a job. I started my job in April of 2024. I went to the management office to report a change in income, and they said my recertification is scheduled for next month. And mind you, this was the same guy who didn't do the recertification, right? He told me while he was standing next to the receptionist that they had there that the recertification is going to be scheduled for next month. When I come in for next month, bring in that information at that point in time. I also went at that very time to HRA and I reported an income change to them, because you have to report it to both parties, right? So the recertification was never scheduled. I started to, after a month or two, I started to write letters to them. And I also was going into the office filling out their documents for their office itself. When I did that, the office still never scheduled it. So a long time went by, and I happened to come in the office one day, and that man's supervisor was standing next to the receptionist when I came into the office. I presented to her the first form that I had that scheduled the recertification, the document that asked for me to reschedule it, and then all of the documents that were stating that all of the documents from me, the letters and the notices and the things from me stating, hey, you guys still haven't done this recertification. She looked at me and was like, well, why wasn't this done? This is supposed to be done a long time ago. I was like, exactly, you're nobody has scheduled this, so you guys need to get this done. So she called me to come in. She was like, hey, when you come in, just bring all of your documents and all of your things, right? So I have brung in, there's some time in between that. So she said, when you come back and we get somebody to schedule this for you, just bring in all of your documents, right? So by the time they actually got it scheduled, which was for that summer, they had multiple people in the office. So they had a lot of people who they didn't schedule this for, I'm guessing. Or maybe this was just around the time the next recertification was actually supposed to be done. Who knows what's going on? I don't work in that office. I don't know. All I know is that there were a bunch of people in that office also filling out recertifications when they called me to come back in and fill out for my recertification. When I came in with all of my documents at that time frame, I was no longer working, because I was only working a seasonal position. I was in there from April to the end of the school year because I was working in the school, right? It was at an after school program. It was seasonal. I had to find something else for myself. So I no longer had a job, but I had all of that information, right? So it was supposed to go based off my income when I came in, which at that point was based back on zero, right? The guy at that point in time, well, when I had come into that office, I have documentation of this as well. What pushed me back into coming into that office and writing so many letters is because when I moved into the apartment, the federal government paid an extra $1,500 into my account. Mind you, when I moved into this, because it's I have project-based Section 8, my security deposit is only $25 when I moved in, right? They received that. I have all documentation to prove that. The federal government gave and also gave an extra $1,500. It's like 15, maybe 69, 15 something they gave me. And they put that inside of the account, which is not considered a security deposit. It's considered a lockbox bank file, right? Which cannot be touched or utilized unless there's a failure of payment or there's damages to the property, right? So every time that I paid, there was a credit in my account. Every month that my rent was due, I paid my rent, and I also put an extra $25 in this account. So in April of 2024, if I'm not mistaken, the rental office charged my account $3,004, right? Which made me start to, no, this wasn't in April of 2024. This was in April of 2025 because the recertification, like I said, was not done. Every time I came into the office, they were claiming that I was making more money than what I was making. They said that I was receiving almost $1,000 in Social Security income, which I never had Social Security. They made me go to the Social Security office and get a letter from Social Security, which I gave them, and then they made me go to HRA and get a budget letter and also forms from them to show that I was not receiving income from them, and also that I no longer had a public assistance case. When I went to HRA and reported my income change when I got that job, it closed my public assistance, right? So I didn't have any public assistance. And then I stopped working at the end of the school year. Recertification was scheduled to be done, or the new recertification was being completed in July. So when July happened, I was out of work at that point because the school year ends in June. Right? So they couldn't go in and put anything. So my income at that point was only $0. When this happened,